welcome everyone to this first warm-up of the Global Agribusiness Forum. The theme of today's warm-up is going to be decarbonizing the global food supply chains. And this warm-up is a event organized under the scope of the Global Agribusiness Forum, which is a joint activity organized by Abramilho, the Brazilian Association of Corn Producers, ABCZ, the Brazilian Association of Zebu Cattle Breeders, ABPA, the Brazilian Association of Animal Protein, Abrafrutas, the Brazilian Association of Producers and Exporters of Fruits and Byproducts, the National Sugar and Ethanol Forum, MAISAL, the International Maize Alliance, which includes all corn producers and exporters organized under the U.S. Grains Council, Abramilho and MAISAR, the Argentinian Association of Corn Producers, the Brazilian Rural Society, a over 100-year-old institution representing the entire farm and agribusiness sector in Brazil, UNEM, the National Union of Corn Ethanol, and Datagro, one of the world's largest agricultural consultancies. To strengthen the agribusiness discussions at the global level, GAF is promoting a set of smaller events called GAF Warm-Ups, aiming at addressing strategic issues involving global agribusiness and promoting information exchange and network between companies and entities within the sector. This first edition of GAF Warm-Up is about decarbonizing the global food supply chain. And we have a international stellar set of speakers to be discussing this issue with us. This event is a joint, has the joint support of Bank Bradesco, which is one of the largest banking institutions in Brazil, supporting agriculture, and Yara International, which is the world's leading fertilizer company and provider of environmental solutions worldwide. Founded in 1905, initially to solve the emerging famine in Europe, Yara has over 17,000 employees and reported revenues of almost $12 billion. The speakers we have today with us are tremendous, and we are very honored with their participation. To moderate the panel, we have Christian Lohbauer. Dr. Lohbauer is a doctor in political science from the University of São Paulo. He has extensive public service and corporate service, and he has been in recent years head of the Brazilian Association of Poultry Exporters between 2006 and 2009. He has been for 5 years also at the head of the Association of Orange Juice Exporters, Citrus BR. He has been a candidate for vice president in Brazil under Partido Novo, and since 2006 until today, he's director of the Council for Agriculture at Fiesp. We also have Mr. Bjorn Theijs, Vice President Global Account Management at Yara, calling from the outskirts of Brussels in Belgium. We have also Ms. Mariane Crespolini dos Santos, Director of Department of Sustainable Production and Irrigation at the Secretariat of Innovation, Rural Development and Irrigation at the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock and Food Supplies in Brazil. And we have Mr. Robert Ehard, Head of Livestock, Dairy, Corporate Sustainable Agriculture Development at Nestlé from Switzerland. I am Plinio Nastari, founder and president of Datagro, and also president of the Brazilian Institute of Bioenergy and Bioeconomy in Brazil. This issue is tremendous. It's at the center of discussions worldwide, and many countries and many companies have set the objective of zeroing the carbon emissions in their entire chain of production and marketing. And this is happening, of course, as well at the food supply chains. In food supply chains, the objective of decarbonizing is being discussed in various ways, in zeroing the emissions in fertilizers through green ammonia produced from green hydrogen, in substitution of fossil fuels in planting, harvesting, and transporting of agricultural products, and also animal products. And this has been the pursuit of many governmental policies around the world, through means of incentivizing producers and consumers in seeking the zeroing of their decarbonization chain. I think today we'll have a very productive discussion. I'm just opening the event, and I would like then to pass the word to our moderator, Dr. Lohbauer, and to our speakers, Mr. Bjorn Theijs, Ms. Mariane Crespolini, and Mr. Robert Ehard, and thanking all of them again for agreeing to share their intelligence with and experience with the participants of this event. Thank you very much to Bradesco and Yara, and have us all a very productive discussion. Thank you. Dr. Lohbauer.
Thank you, Plinio. Thank you for this introduction. I'm glad to be with this STARS team of presentators. My role here will be to moderate the conversation and the debate. We have a very interesting issue to debate today. As Mr. Plinio has introduced, we will discuss decarbonizing the global food supply chain. This is a very contemporary topic. It's being part of the debate on everything we do in this world today, on companies, in the agriculture activities and services. And when we talk about the food systems, we have also a huge debate on the United Nations nowadays, and we were going to have the food supply chains meeting in New York in the end of the month. So all these issues have been in the top of the agenda, and it's an honor for me to be with you and to moderate this conversation. The question that Agro put it to our as a main question to be answered is, which are the most promising technological approaches, and how can they be rolled out when we talk about decarbonizing the food supply chains? So we have three presentators. We will start with Mr. Bjorn Theijs from Yara. Plinio had already introduced, but I have to say that Bjorn is the VP Global Account Management at Yara, and he will have his 20 minutes to make his presentation. I understand that every one of you three will have 20 minutes, and then we organize the debates and answer the questions that will be stated during the conversation. Said that, thank you very much for Agro, for the organization, for the invitation to be here with you. And during the conversations, if necessary, I'll try to bring some commentaries, short commentaries on the presentations, and I have the role to control the time. I'm sorry about that, but this is part of the organization. So, Bjorn, the floor is yours. Please, we are glad to have you with us.
Thank you for having me, and honestly, I'm humbled to be in the presence of all these high experts in the industry. And just maybe very quick as an introduction to my person. So I'm Bjorn Theijs. As mentioned, I live in Brussels in Belgium, and I work for Yara for several years, and I'm responsible for what we call the food value chain activities. And this is basically where Yara seeks actively and collaborates with food companies, regional and global food companies around the world, to drive more sustainable solutions in the food value chains. May I ask Monique maybe to share some of the slides that I have prepared to start off the presentation? Will you be sharing?
Monique, can you help us? Can you help us with this to open the presentation?
If not, I can also share it. That's easier.
Let me see.
But I'll suggest I'll share. I can do that. Let me share my screen.
I think Monique can share as well. Let me see if she can. She's in contact with me here. One minute.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, there it is. Thank you. If you would move to the first slide, maybe. Very quick, just as an introduction for maybe people in the audience that are not familiar with Yara. So as also in the introduction, Yara exists since 1905. So we really have experience in crop nutrition for more than 100 years. And Yara in those 100 years went through really an evolution, really from maybe being a commodity product company in the very beginning, evolving to a crop nutrition company. Then more to food solutions, and now really going and looking more at climate neutral solutions. For us, that's a natural transition. It's a need for any company to change and adapt to current situations. And this is also where we have taken our responsibility for all the challenges that our planet are facing. If you would go maybe to the next slide, please. So just to mention, crop nutrition is really a relevant contributor when it comes to the carbon footprint in food value chains. And just to give some examples here, if you look at the GHG emissions from wheat bread or potatoes, 26% from that is coming from farming. And if you would break down that 26%, and you will see that for wheat, for instance, 40% is coming from the soil, and 31% is coming from the fertilizer production. So that's actually 70% that is related or to crop nutrition. If you look at potato, then it's 30% from the soil and 25%. These are average numbers, but that really shows that Yara can really deliver an impact on the carbon footprint when it comes to these crops that are part of the food value chain. And we've taken also the challenge to really, play a really leading role in decarbonizing the food chain, and we're also looking how can we solve these issues. What we see as a solution for these carbon footprints is, first of all, improved farmer practices, then also alternative fertilizers, so green and efficient fertilizers going forward. Then also looking at circular economy. Circular economy means then, first of all, on farm level, so looking at what nutrients are maybe available in the farm or around the farm, like for instance manure or coffee husk or certain things, and then seeing what are the missing nutrients that can be added. But it can also be in collaboration with food companies, where they have also food waste coming from processing plants, and we're also looking, can we valorize these food wastes and maybe turn that into a type of organomineral fertilizers that can be reused again by the contract farmers that are near the processing plants. So these are all areas that we're looking at. And then, of course, digital solutions. That is also, when it comes to technologies, is really, because knowledge is for us the key to all of these challenges. And how do you bring all of these knowledges to the farmers? We see that digital solutions can be a fantastic tool for that, reach millions of farmers around the world and really sharing the knowledge that is needed to tackle these challenges. If you would go to the next slide, please. So a first level where we can do a lot on carbon footprint is the fertilizers itself. And if you would look at the fertilizers produced in the EU or Norway, some other places also have it. And if you would compare that basically the traditional way of fertilizer production, you will already see that those fertilizers have already 50% lower carbon footprint. This is produced by best applied technology, and that's basically based on an N2O abatement catalyst. This was invented by Yara and shared with others. And now, as a next step, Yara is investing in green technology for ammonia, where basically we will produce ammonia and fertilizer based on renewable energy, so on solar, wind, or hydropower. And this will reduce the carbon footprint of the fertilizers itself down to 90% lower of traditional. So this is already a big step ahead that we will make. And first volumes for these type of fertilizers will be available from 2023 onwards. So this is the fertilizer part. If we would go to the next slide.
Bjorn, sorry to interrupt you.
Yes.
I don't know if the others are having trouble to hear you, but I note when you are closer to the microphone, it's better to hear you. So
okay, I'll
this like that is better. Yes.
Okay, I'll stay close to the microphone then.
Thank you.
Yes. Did you understand what I was mentioning before, or should I repeat? No, that was, yeah.
We could follow. Yes, we could follow, but there is sometimes there is a tricky
echo.
But it's okay. If you get closer, I think it will be better.
Okay. If we could go back to the slide, please. Okay. So as I mentioned, this is the part on the fertilizers itself that we can help and support decarbonization. If we would go to the next slide. Here you see that also the infield practices are an important contributor to decarbonization. And this is really where, precision agriculture will help to enhance also the nitrogen use efficiency. On the left, you see Yara field trials that have been done and compared to an average. And the nitrogen use efficiency in most cases, this cannot be seen as a global average. Unfortunately, agriculture is never one size fits all. But overall, we know that nitrogen use efficiency can be improved in most cases. And of course, that will help that farmers can use less inputs, which will lead to less volatilization and leaching of the fertilizers, and will also reduce the carbon footprint immensely. Of course, this is also where digital come in. And Yara has its own portfolio and range of a lot of digital tools that can really help to support and sensors and satellite imagery that help the farmers make the right decision and really only add the nutrients where it's needed. So this is also an area where we have to look and bring the knowledge to the farmers, whether it's through the more traditional agronomy, through training, through digital tools, but also this can help to really decarbonize. If we would then go to the next slide, please. So also what is quite important is also the nitrogen form matters, and these were trials done on winter wheat. And I must say that was from arable fields at moderate soil moisture. It's important to highlight that because moderate soil moisture is the condition for most soils that are there. If you go to very wet conditions or rice with irrigation, it's a different situation, of course. But here also it shows that if you use nitrates instead of urea, that the N2O emissions from the field are much lower than with urea. And we also did trials in Brazil on coffee. And after 5 seasons, we also measured, we monitored the soil. And we saw that with nitrates, there was no soil acidification. And there was more soil organic matter using nitrates in there. So also this is important. And in general, right, the 4R principles, that you use the right time, the right source, the right application, the right rate, is definitely still key to come to the best possible way of using crop nutrition. If you then would go to the next slide, these are 2 examples of how Yara works with food companies, and the first one is also where both Robert and I worked on, and this is where Nestle and Yara are really partnering. And these were dairy trials we did in Colombia. And by really increasing the grass yields and the quality of the grass, we were managed to make cows more productive, healthier, and milk qualities and farmer profitability really increased. And after 9 months of grazing with intensive grazing farm, we saw that there was a reduction of CO2 emissions of around 20%, which is quite amazing. And in the middle, you see a quote from one of the farmers that was participating to the program. And he said, we started with 1 plot to do the trial, but when he was seeing the results, he was switching all his plots to the new solutions. And we really had to convince him to leave 1 plot in the more traditional way because we needed it for our research and trials as a reference point. But it was a fantastic experience also for me to see that the farmer was really convinced, and he saw that there was also a lot of benefits for him in this way. That was also helping to make that transformation, of course. And if you would go to the next slide, just one other example. This is Lohbauer, which is a Swedish co-op and also food company, and they have set for themselves the target to really have a fossil-free food value chain. And they basically map out where the carbon footprints come from. And as you can see in the fertilizers and the inputs and the emissions from arable land, these are really 2 big impact areas for the wheat production, what they use for their bread. And these are then areas where also Yara is working with Lohbauer together to really help them make their value chain fossil free. And they will be one of the first to use green fertilizers as well. And we're working very closely together with them on precision farm on the field to reduce the infield emissions. So this is a live example of how Yara also works with food companies, both global and regional companies, to help decarbonize the food chain. Then if you would go to the final slide, basically as a main conclusion or summary from my side. So for decarbonizing the food chain, it's not only decarbonized fertilizers that we need, but on top of that, we also need to increase the productivity on the existing farmlands. We need to increase nitrogen use efficiency, and we need to reduce the emissions from the soil by precision farming. And also, we should also support co-benefits of agriculture to help sequester carbon in the soil to mitigate climate change, meaning agroforestry, cover crops, tillage, all of these practices are also things that Yara supports very much. This is what I wanted to show. I hope I'm well in time, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Bjorn, for this short, clear, and straight presentation. We're glad to see how Yara is doing a good job. We know Yara all over the world is a great company, and how they're doing their job to enhance nitrogen use efficiency and to reduce the ammonia on the fields, and also all the efforts in the whole chain to reduce to carbon emissions. So thank you very much. Congratulations for the presentation. Let's go straight to the other panelist. We go to Robert Erhard. Actually, we should have started with the ladies, but considering that the lady is a Brazilian, so let's start with the foreign visitors. Let's hear what Robert is, as Plinio has said, he's the head of Livestock, Dairy, Corporate Sustainable Agriculture Development at Nestlé, and we are very glad that he's here with us. Robert, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So I'll just give I'll share my screen and share it directly from here. Please let me know when you can see my screen. It should be this one here, and it should work. Can you see my screen?
Not yet. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So first of all, thank you for having us here, for having me here at this and giving us this floor, this opportunity to speak. I truly believe we've entered into a new era for agriculture, and there's a lot of focus that has come on food and agriculture. But first, a short background to myself. As you said, I head global fresh milk sourcing at Nestlé, and I also lead the Climate Net Zero Livestock Program and Regen Ag Program for livestock and dairy at Nestlé. Worked a lot in multi-stakeholder initiatives and collaborations such as the Nestlé Dairy Farming Institute, the Sustainable Dairy Partnership, which is an approach that we've built across quite a number of companies, 40 plus dairy cooperatives around the world, plus buyers, that we have an aligned way of measuring sustainability and tracking progress in there. And I'm also the president of the Sustainable Agriculture Initiative platform, which has over 150 member companies. And it shows just how important it is we should work together, because no company can go on the sustainability journey alone. I'm obviously very deeply into livestock, into dairy, so I'm passionate about that as well. And when we look at this picture of a cow, a lot of people see different things into it. Some people will today say, oh, those are the ones that are polluting the planet with all that methane. Others will say, no, we shouldn't be even holding animals for any animal protein production, while others say, this is the most nutritious, milk is the most nutritious protein or cost-effective protein available on the planet. It's very wholesome, it has all the elements, and people, below 26 or 30, if you want to have a healthy, holistic development of a person, needs animal protein in there, and milk does a fantastic job behind it. So there are a lot of different visions and views of agriculture, just by taking the example of dairy. And agriculture, when it gets a lot of attention, it can be for the good or for the bad, but we do have the task in getting it right. What has been in the past has been, but it's about how are we going to go forwards. And we are severely challenged in our agricultural production systems I'll start with the right top corner, with the food basket of what people are willing to buy. What are they considering when they are purchasing? How do the diets look like? And these things are evolving everywhere around the globe as the next generation of consumers is becoming very conscious of this. We're also seeing climate change, pattern change. We're seeing drought, we're seeing flooding, we're seeing the risk of biodiversity loss, which I've here symbolized with the bees. Bees, something that, by the way, consumers understand. It's very emotional and easy to relate to. And on the other hand, finding production systems, and I say this in a plural form, in which the farmer can also thrive. Let's be clear. The optimum is not to run any agriculture, is to let nature take the full planet back, but then humans don't belong here anymore. We won't eat anymore. So it's about finding that healthy balance, or finding a balance in which we can regenerate our environment, our nature in which we operate in. And here a fundamental change actually has happened in the last few years. And it's really penetrating through. And that is the realization that with what we have done as humans, we have a lasting impact on the planet. We can change the planet. This has happened. Our interventions with industrializations, with factories, with cars, with agriculture has had a massive impact. And for the first time, realize, or this notion of that we really truly have system boundaries that are there, that exist, and what I do matters, has become a general accepted principle, which makes all of us accountable. And rather than just focusing on individual practices of this is good, this is bad, black and white world, we have an accountability that is measured by metrics. To take decarbonization as an example, we have a clear way to measure, and as Bjorn was nicely showing just now, how to calculate the footprint of an agricultural ingredient that ends up on our plate. So this is a fundamental shift of how we're doing things, of how we will be doing things. Rather than having a black and white world, we're now moving into quite a colorful world. There is an old Italian saying, there are many roads that lead to Rome. Some are faster, some are slower. But it is no longer about do this, then don't do that. It's about what we actually do, what we actually impact in our environment that matters. And I think this is a very important understanding to take with us. Even when we talk about decarbonization, we have reached the notion of having reached planetary boundary limits. The ability of human beings to have a lasting real impact has occurred. And hence, we are in a race. So when we look at this as into this context, into a bigger picture, we're talking here about climate neutrality. You see a lot of companies, you see countries and people caring about it and bringing out commitments on that. But we also have the topic of nature, because it's about working together with and not against nature. In some countries, there's a strong notion that has occurred on the topic of COVID. I'm not going to diverge here too long on COVID, but COVID in the sense of we have ignored nature too much and now nature is pushing back, right? So it's about respecting nature. And when we talk about nature, I'll make this very specific. We're talking about soil health and its ability to capture carbon, the biodiversity and the water element. And of course, if we're working with animal proteins, we're also talking about animal welfare. All of this is nice and good, but the center stage at agriculture, and we cannot forget that, by no means is the farmer, right? So we have to stress the point of living wage and income, meaning what the farmer makes, what his employees make, and very importantly, also the next generation of farmers. Once again, if we don't have a next generation of farmers, that won't work either. So farmers have to make an income. They have to gain respect, and they have to receive, not gain, they have to receive the respect in society, but they also have to become the heroes, because that's literally how we're positioning, how they are going to be positioned, of helping us to decarbonize the planet, because the biggest sources of our ability to capture carbon is going to be in soil and trees. So the opinions that are out there, climate neutrality, how about methane emissions? Nature is being ignored. The topic of anthropomorphism, what I mean with that is that we take the feeling of how I would feel as a human being in the position of a cow, right? So if I say, well, I would be feeling happy or not happy as a cow, doesn't mean that the cow actually feels that way, because ideal temperatures, or what a cow like may not be the same thing. So we're going to have to change that, and we have to make sure that farmers do have an attractive income and a social status. And so here there are different elements that have to come together. We have to build and develop low carbon farms or net zero farms. We have to move into a regenerative agriculture, which allows us to work with nature, building up resilience, because a healthy soil with a lot of good organic matter also has a better water retention. There is a much greater biodiversity. The biodiversity in soil is much greater than what we actually see as humans above soil. And animal welfare, taking really fact-based approaches, letting the cow or letting the animal talk back to us. And there are very new ways with sensors and so on how that can be done. And most importantly, developing business models for farmers in which they can thrive, in which they can be happy. So what does that mean for people like myself? And I'm sure a lot of the people listening in. We are stewards of this planet. We can make a difference, and it is our purpose and our job to work together in examples, as Bjorn has just recently shown, in creating in decarbonizing agriculture and helping getting it right. Of course, agriculture, however, also needs an environment in which it can thrive, and this is the element of where policies can play a significant role in this. However, critical is speed. When we look at the commitments and how climate change is moving, tropical areas that usually always had rain, having no rain last year or the year before of 9 to 12 months, we are having to act. The signs, it's no longer little signs out there, they're big signs. And we see that a lot of the farmers are really interested in becoming resilient and ensuring a good future for themselves as well. So let's act together. And very importantly, I want to stress, this is where I started out. No one and no company and no government can do this alone, but we can do it if we put ourselves together and all pull in the same direction and support each other in making this happen. So let's not leave people behind, let's take them with us. And that was really my key message for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. It was a great presentation. I'm very glad to hear from you. Is some words like find a balance, some words like not black and white, to work together, cooperation, and in this world of polarization in all senses that we are living today, it's very good to hear that a top executive like you in a company like Nestle see things in a very rational way, as we would like to hear. From Brazil, we get so many radical positions, and sometimes without metrics, as you put, somehow without the necessary information to evaluate problems and phenomena. So it's great to hear from you that this balance of opinion, and at the same time the obligation we have to get with and work together with nature is an obvious statement that we have to make today. So thank you very much for the presentation. Without any delay, I'll pass the word to Mariane Crespolini, one of the stars of our Ministry of Agriculture. Mariane is Director of the Department of Sustainable Production and Irrigation at the Secretariat of Innovation in Rural Development and Irrigation at the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock and Food Supply in Brazil. Mariane, thank you for being with us. Please, the time is yours.
Good morning, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon. I would like first to thank you for the invitation. Thank you and congratulations for Data Agro, for Robert, with you, Chris, and to have this discussion. I will share my screen, and compartilhar. Just let me know if you are seeing. Are you seeing my screen? Yes?
Yes.
Yes. While I'm sharing my screen, I'm not seeing you, Christian. If you have some problem, just let me know, okay, please. So I've been a director. I work as a researcher. I was a researcher in the University of São Paulo during all my career. I did my PhD in development economics, and I have a bachelor degree in environmental management. So all my career, Christian, and for everybody that are listening, I try to study how all these decarbonization technologies that we have in Brazil now can increase and promote development economics. So I will bring some elements about that during my presentation. I'm not here to talk about past, but I will use the past to talk about future. And it's important to say that even though Brazil is a continental country, during the 70s, 80s years, Brazil imported essential foods. As we can see in this picture, we imported beans during the 70s and 80s. And what was the big transformation about agriculture and livestock in Brazil? Technology. So here I choose the picture of the creation of a Brazilian Agricultural Research Corporation, Embrapa, that was essential with the universities and other research institutions to bring all these technologies that we have to decrease carbon in agriculture. Here, just the data. So during the 70s, we plant grain production in 37 million hectares, and we produce 37 million tons. So 2020, data from CONAB, we plant 63 million hectares, and it's important to emphasize that 20 million hectares we plant in the second and the third harvest. So we use the same area that we use for the first crop. And we increase 4 times our productivity during this time. And this should be the future. We must increase our production by productivity, by technologies. So talk about decarbonization, I have to talk about the ABC plan. ABC plan is the Brazilian national policy for adaptation and low carbon emission agriculture. I love this picture that we can see, because when I look for this picture, I imagine it, usually I say in Brazilian, in Portuguese, like the amount of blood from the researchers, the Brazilian researchers, to develop a pastry variety that we can plant the corn and the pastry together, and when you harvest the corn, you have this condition of pastry. So the ABC plan completes 10 years, and in this first 10 years, since 2010 to 2020, we have 6 technologies. That was recovery of the degraded pastry, the integrated agricultural systems like crop, livestock, and forest. Robert, you talk about animal welfare. You can see here the shadow with the animals, with the thermal comfort for the animals that increase the production in the same area. No-till systems, biological nitrogen fixation that Bjorn already talked a lot about nitrogen. That was a key tools, a key strategy to decrease emission in agriculture, planted forests, and manure management and treatment. This picture shows the past, but it's also very important for the future, for metrics, for monitoring. So since 2010, we recovered 26 million of hectares. It's an area bigger than United Kingdom. But the most important information that I have in this map is where is the problem, where we have to work for the future, and very important, monitoring. So 2 years ago, the information about recovery of the degraded pasture that we have here was with the loan credit, the financial government credit that we have. That was like 4 million hectares that was recovered. And then we try to improve this information. Where we recover? What was the factors that promote this recovery? And for sure, in this picture, this research, I can send the link of the complete research, show for us that the loan, the financial, was very essential. The areas that increased, that the pasture start to be in good condition, was area that the farmers took the loan, the ABC program. So here, just more information. This is all available in our website. Then consider the 6 technologies from 2010 to 2018. More than 50 million hectares adopted the 6 technologies. So this is a very good number, but in the end, I will talk about future. We still having millions and millions of hectares of pasture that was degraded. That is in this condition, in this my left side of the picture. So a big question that I think that we can discuss later is, how can we, what is the incentive that farmers need to move from these extensive systems for a good and low carbon emission or a neutral system of production? And a very important point that I would like to say is farmers need technical assistance, but not only technical, but management assistance. Why? When we look for this data, this is some data from my PhD thesis. In this left side, I have one head animal per hectare, produce 50 kilos of beef per hectare. And the production cost, it's more or less $50 US. In reais, is almost the price that the farmers are selling their animals now.
Mariane,
5 times more animal. I have delayed. Yes, are you seeing it?
we had a
Christian?
yes, we had an interruption in the transmission. Now you're back, but we had two connection problems, but now you're back. Okay, go ahead.
Yes. Did you listen about the left side, Christian?
Yes, we were
So
hearing about the recovery of degraded pastures.
Okay, so when we talk about the recovered pasture, we have 5 heads. So we can decrease the area of pasture and still increase our production. Here we can produce 10 times more beef, more meat, and the production cost decrease. So this is an important key message. We have here a solution for climate change, and also very important for food security. Food prices decrease. So here we have a lower marginal cost of production. And very important, here Embrapa already has a scientific based data that we can have a carbon with low emission. And when we have the trees, we have eucalyptus, the integrated systems that I told in the beginning, we already have here in Brazil, consumers can buy this in the supermarket, the carbon neutral beef. And here there is the website if someone would like more details. I give the example about carbon neutral beef, but here in the ministry we are incentivizing other products, like we already have in Brazil milk, coffee, leather, and other products. Here just a picture, a real case, and again, let's think about farmers. This is Santa Brígida farm in 2006. I use Santa Brígida because there is a lot of scientific data about this case, but we could talk about million of families in Brazil that are moved from the system. So in 2006, $50 US loss per hectare per year, and only creates 3 jobs. See next picture, the transformation. So here I have last year Marise. This is a farmer that is leader by a woman. She had 1,400 profit per hectare per year. And the marginal production cost decreased 50%. So, and the jobs increase in 10 times. This is very important. This is the sustainability. When I look for this picture, I can see the sustainability in environmental, social, and economic. It's climate change and food security. So just to almost finish, Christian, Brazil can have 3 harvests per year, and think about the tropical agriculture. We must so to recover degraded areas and increase the integrated system. So we can plant soybean in October in a no-till systems. So when I look for this picture, I can see the carbon sequestration in the no-till. And then we harvest soybean, we use better the inputs that was already used for soybean in soil preparation, and then we plant corn. The same time that we plant corn, we plant the pasture. So on May, when it starts the dry season in Brazil, we have pasture, good pasture condition until between August, sometimes depending of the season, on September. I took this picture on July 26. July 26 in Brazil, it's the dry season. And as Robert already mentioned, this is very important. We must think agriculture and livestock as one of the most vulnerable systems for climate change. We have here industry in an open sky. So with climate change, agriculture, food production will be very affected about climate change. And here we have a system that we can see the adaptation. In the dry season, I like this picture. Here's Brasilia. Brazil is brown in July, and then you have this condition. Usually people ask me, oh, this picture is an irrigation pasture, and I say, no, this is only the tropical technology that we start during the 70s, where start my presentation, where Brazil imports food. So same area, more production, less finance risk, more profitability, cheapest food, less inflation, environmental conservation, and social benefits. It's possible to produce and conserve. And here, this is my last slide, just to talk about the ABAC Plus. On April, we present to the society the strategical basis for the ABAC Plus. So ABAC plan completes 10 years, and now we are looking for the period between 2020 and 2030. So this is the strategical, and just bring some elements that Robert and Bjorn already bring for us. You can see here the nature. So one very important conceptual basis for the future is the integrated landscape approach. So in the productive areas, we incentivize low carbon technologies, decarbonization technologies. And we also have in Brazil the forest code. So we have also the area that is destination for native preservation, for biodiversity, and we try to bring this element in this picture. Already, if Bjorn already bring this information, the soil biodiversity, soil information, the root, the fixation, biological fixation nitrogen, the bio inputs that Christian, we are discussing a lot about that, but the bio inputs is very important. And here, a very important element also, the women empowerment, a women researcher. The research needs to bring together with these metrics. So this is the big picture about the strategic about the ABAC Plus, and I'm very happy to say for you that we just finished the document about the operational plan. So what will be the new technologies? So we'll keep all the 6 first technologies. We'll bring new technologies for the ABAC Plus. We have new goals, new strategies, and a very key important information, as Robert already brings for us. I'm just back here with you. The metrics, monitoring. We need to think that now the Paris Agreement starts. We need to have information, precision information, scientific information. And that's time just to finish. 3 months ago, we present to society these 2 documents. That is a collection of scientific papers. The PDF is in the ministry website. We are translating this for English. We will present the translation on COP26. It's a book that we bring the research for 400 research from Brazil and for the world about factors of removal and emission and agriculture, livestock in tropical agriculture. So this is only the beginning. We need to improve these metrics, and how already Bjorn and Robert told, can't do this alone. Will not be the government alone. We need to think about the solution for climate change, food security together. I think that was this my point, Chris. Innovation, research, metrics, monitoring, international cooperation is very important. And in that time, I talk a lot about farmers, but we had here, I have a lot of cooperation projects like Rural Sustentável, Paisagens Rurais. We had one that was
Mariane? I think we lost Mariane.
I'm back, sorry.
Oops.
Are you listening now?
Yeah, yes. We lost your conclusions.
Are you listening?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. So just finish. In ABC Cerrado, for each $1 that the international corporation brings as technical, or even with his own money, $7. So when they realize that the technology increased their profitability, as Santa Brígida that I presented before, they adopt the technology. They just need the correct incentives. So it was this, I think that was in the time, Christian. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mariana, for your presentation. It's a good part of what we in this country are trying to communicate to the whole world. And we have two top executives from European companies that will help us to balance the dialogue and to work together with us, because most of the critics and the perceptions of permanent degradation in this country come from the European public opinion. So you presented many things that have been done in Brazil to decarbonize and to react to climate change and to improve the quality of agriculture. You touched the recovery of degraded pasture. You touched the crop, livestock, forest integration. You also talked about no-tillage system. You talked about biological nitrogen fixation and planted forests. So everything that has been done, and it's of course is becoming part of the producers' day-to-day life and consciousness. And we know that we are trying to change the pattern of quality of the work of our farmers and producers. So thank you very much for the presentation. So far, I have not received in my equipment here any question, but I don't know if I'm on the right place to gather the questions. But I will use the prerogative to be here to make the first question, if you allow me to do it. I am working today at the directing the CropLife Brazil. You probably know CropLife International, the Association of Crop Protection and Biologicals and Seeds Producers. In Brazil, we have joined all these different crop protection technologies and all the technologies and biotechnologies in one organization. And we are members of the CropLife International, and we are in the board of the CropLife International. And what we have been confronting today is not confronting, but this is one of the reality of the international agenda, is the Green Deal in Europe. I'd like to know from Bjorn and Robert, and if Mariana would like to comment, how you're seeing the development of the Green Deal agenda in Europe, how Yara and Nestle are participating on this. And of course, the strategy of farm to fork is part of it, because we, of course, as big producers and exporters of food, we are following this agenda with a lot of attention. How are you seeing from your company's perspective the development of this agenda, and how it could help us to work together and avoid any, how can I say, any exaggeration on the measures and the decisions that Europe wants to export to the world, so to say. Let's start with Bjorn, please, if you can comment on this.
Yes, of course. Thank you. No, I think one of the big challenges that we're facing, and this was also mentioned by Robert, is speed and scale. I think there's a lot of science available, and you see it from the many examples that are there. There's a lot of knowledge that can bring a lot of progress. But how do you scale that to the farmers? And for me personally, I think that the farmer plays a key role there. But if we let the farmer take or have to make all the changes and have to finance and take all the risks, then it's going to be difficult to achieve that speed and scale. And that for me is where governments and food companies and also input providers have to work much more closely together to really help the farm make that, by financing, by risk sharing, by making sure that the knowledge is there. And if we have to go farmer by farmer, it will be too slow. And if you look at the time, it's maybe 8 harvests until 2030, which is not too long anymore. So for me, really, speed is of an essence, and like Robert says, it's a race. And Europe has the Green Deal, and that can set as an example. But it will help if we find some common ground, and if there's common views that are science-based, to help achieve these targets. That will, otherwise we will confuse, and people don't know what is needed anymore.
Yeah, Robert, if you can comment on this.
Well, yes, Europe has the Green Deal. You mentioned that this is something that Europe is trying to export. I would like to challenge you on that. Philosophically, maybe even there, some people may want to argue about that, where that thought process came from, because this whole topic of climate change, let's be frank, when I remember going to primary school, our teachers were talking about it. And the effect that it would have on migration that we see today globally around the world. I mean, this has been taught 30, 40 years ago, and today we're seeing the consequences. Why are we surprised? We shouldn't be. And the fact that just as Europe, the US is taking this serious, some of the states are a bit of ahead. Just look at what California is doing, or how the Chinese, in a very large scale, are looking at building their plans. And having lived there for 12 years, yes, they will bunker down, they will do their homework, and then they will move ahead. But when they move ahead, they truly move ahead. So to that point, governmental policies are required. And what I last heard in a similar discussion forum in which the EU Commission as well as the USDA were involved, their willingness to collaborate with industry, with farmers, was there. It is a given, and it is about all hands on deck and working together, moving the same way forward. And this is why I chose that as a key message. I didn't even mention that Nestle had done an official commitment to climate neutrality or regenerative agriculture or the water plan that we released, putting significant financial resources behind that, in the billions, literally. And the EU taxonomy of the requirement for companies to report on in the future of not only our where we are financially, but also what that implies in terms of our impact that we have on the environment, that is coming down the road on policies. So when you ask, what does that mean for a country? What does it mean for an agricultural supply chain in Brazil? It's actually not that hard to translate. It's the same thing that we need to do within our actual supply chains. And the first absolute non-negotiable thing, which some supply chains may not like hearing, is traceability. Because without traceability, I'm sorry, you have nothing. You don't know where it's coming from. You can do whatever you want. you can say whatever you want, but you have absolutely no traceability. So who is fighting against you on the traceability, be it traceability in the soy supply chain or anything else, and I'm calling this out on purpose, I'm sorry, that has to change, and that has to be a priority. The second thing is get primary data. We talked about facts. Primary data means I know where this is. I not only know where it comes from, but I also know what the footprint is, what its impact is, and I'm willing to be accountable, because either you're, and this is truly what I believe, as we are all going to be held accountable, and this is why I talked about accountability, you're not willing to share where it's from and that you're accountable of your footprint and you admit it. Maybe it's not great, so what? You move forwards. You're going to have a problem. So in order to make that data shareable as well, digitize, supply chains have to professionalize, and that's what we're talking about. The ABC program in Brazil that you're talking about, you can sum everything up with the simple word: we cannot accept that agriculture remains in the bushes in certain types of production systems, remains in the bushes 50 years ago, like it was 50 years ago. It has to step up, it has to professionalize and be holistic in its approach. And be bold to ask for the collaborative supports. And that's what we do in our collaboration. We have multiple projects with Yara, where Yara says, look, guys, we know a little bit more about fertilization than you do, let us help you. And we look for a win-win situation, how that gets built up. And that has to be with everybody there. And I think that's the approach. You talked about technical assistance. I think that's where it's going. There is also a realization, and maybe not directly, well, it may be part in the Green Deal in coming up with projects that they have asked for, is the element of R&D. How we sequester carbon in soil is not a straightforward, easy thing. So if you look at an example of what Ireland has done, setting up a few hundred farms in which they're measuring soil carbon sequestration, how things are, what kind of practices work, what they don't work. I think these are things that have to be driven by policies and support. And while you can be for or against or see strengths and weaknesses in the Green Deal, the direction is correct, and what they will continue to do is going to be correct. And the best thing we can do is provide critical, reflective feedback that helps them to become better. But for that, we have to be open, communicate, and share. But just to repeat again, traceable, primary data, fact-based, and professionalization. I think these three things, without overcomplicating anything, if that exists, there will not be any. I mean, that's the big question the countries will have for being able to export. Will there be any restrictions? And if that is there, I don't see any restrictions that could ever occur.
Good. Thank you, Mariane. Would you like to comment on this, or I have other questions here?
You can go ahead. I checked that there is some question. Okay,
so you probably saw we have a question from Mr. Dieter Dubois. How will, and that's it, how will corporates convince consumers and government to actually pay the extra price to put the change forward? Will cheap available products not always be chosen above sustainable ones? That is the first question. I think it's a good question. I mean, we have also this debate inside here in Brazil on when we want to talk about organics and, you know, more sophisticated products, and it's very nice. We see as a niche of market, but when you have to produce food in a large scale, it's obvious cheaper, and how we deal with this challenge. So the floor is open. I mean, if one of you would like to start, or I can indicate one of you if you like.
Would you like that I start?
Okay, do it.
Dieter, I have here in my team a researcher from Federal University from Mato Grosso do Sul.
Oops.
And she has later. Yes, I come back. And Thelma has a scientific paper that I can share that shows that many consumers don't want to pay more for neutral carbon beef. And the survey was in many areas in Brazil. And the main point about that we are working for is that, so if the consumer will not pay more, the technology needs to decrease the marginal cost. So even if the price will be the same, we need to decrease the production cost in farm. So this is one of the big points about the ABC technologies in Brazil. Needs to decrease the cost, and then this creates a circular effect. That if you decrease cost, increase profitability, and even if consumer will not pay more, that is the experience that we had in this survey or some questionnaire, then the profitability will increase the adoption.
Robert or Bjorn, would you like to complete?
Yeah, I think we need to be realistic on both ends. On the one hand, I agree consumers are by no means wanting to pay more, and the majority of the consumers don't have extra cash to spend on food. However, I think COVID has also shown we can live without a lot of things, but we definitely can't live without food and water. So it's a question, a little bit of prioritization as well. When we're looking at decarbonizing an agricultural production system, there are a lot of low-hanging fruits, but there are also things that are going to cost money. Money has to flow in, and there is also a transition period of 3 to 5, 6 years in which yields will be impacted. And one way or the other, be it through government, be it through companies, be it other systems, are going to have to compensate or support carrying that risk. We have to be realistic about that. However, also the last miles, at least with today's given technologies, they do cost. And when we look at in multiple locations, the cost increase for those last miles to go really regenerative. We have statistical figures for that, but they are by far not as high as they would be in organic. They are lower, and we have to see what are we spending on certification and other things, and where we have to be as cost efficient as well, because I agree their consumers shouldn't be paying for that. On the other hand, I would also like to point out that if you take dairy, 1 billion people on this planet today have part or all of their income coming from dairy. You can take fish, and you can add a few more billion people, and you can add other agricultural commodities, and you add several 100 million more people. So we've just as 2-3 examples, I've added half of the global population. Now, if half of the global population earns also better, and goes into healthy economic production systems, then the purchasing power is also given. There are knock-on effects. So will it come overnight? No. Will it gradually come? Yes. Will food likely be a bigger share of the expenses in the basket of what consumers are going to be spending? Personally, I hope so, because I do think that some of the prices today where commodities are priced do not allow to move into a production system that really truly takes care of our planet. And if we don't do so, the cost of food is going to go skyrocket high. And we can just think back at some of the drought periods, or when we have reduced shipping possibilities as we have right now. When we look at commodity prices, if you're looking at a 10% price increase, you're happy it's only 10%. So those are realities we will be faced, and it will happen one way or the other, most likely.
Good. Bjorn, any comment on this?
Yes, I agree with Robert. I would say, if we look at best available techniques today, already a big step forward can be taken at things that are already there and available. If you look at innovations, of course, typically the innovations, when they come in, they have a higher cost, but once then they become more the scale, and also that cost normalizes. And that's, like Robert says, something these costs have to be taken by, or shared by the different actors in the food value chain to make sure these innovations can happen, at least. But I would also say, if you look, for instance, the example I gave on nitrogen use efficiency, there is also where basically, if you do it right and you have all the soil analysis and you're only adding the nutrients that you need, you can also have a more efficient way of growing a crop. And that's also what Mariane was referring to, that basically you can reduce also cost by efficiencies. So it's finding that balance and that sweet spot, and hopefully by freeing up, or helping the farmer getting an extra income with carbon farming and being incentivized maybe with that, he can use that money also to support and invest in the transition and have also a better livelihood, of course. So I would say it's really a mix and many shoulders that would have to carry this.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, if you allow me to add on this debate, I think the magic word is, as Robert said, we have to be bold, yes, but we need a transition, and we have to, and this transition might be, sometimes it's going to take more time and less time depending on how big is the challenge. When we look at Brazil, we see we have to be bold, but the transition will take a long time. I mean, we always say that this country is too big, and people sometimes laugh about it, but it's a reality. The dimensions are so huge, and the differences between regions and the heterogeneity of the level of understanding of many farmers is so big that you have the Formula One in one side, and you have hundreds of thousands of producers that are almost in the middle age. So we still have to put everything together and understand that it's going to take time. So far, the numbers I have is that the median European family spends about 14% of their revenue in food, and in this country, the average family spends about 54%. So this is the challenge we have. So, but anyway, I think we are in a good path, and I think this cooperation and the idea of traceability, accountability, and professionalism has to be the main focus of our actions to finally get in the decarbonizing agriculture and implement all these policies that are so complex. We have another question here. I don't know if it's making sense, but Venice Valdig is asking, what is expected of recognition and appreciation of the progress by end consumers? Do you understand the question? I mean, I think she's mentioning all this. She's trying to mention that the decarbonizing system of food systems, how can it be recognized and appreciated by end consumers? Do you understand the same as me? Okay, who would be the first? Mariane, would you like to start again?
Christian, I think that is exactly what you told before. So in the consumers group that has a better social situation with a high level of education, the progress has already happened. They are looking for products with decarbonization technologies. But we still have, for example, in Brazil, the official data from IBGE show that 50% of our population live with one minimum salary. So for this group, this for sure will be slowly, because all their necessity, their social situation, it's much more complex, much more complicated. So I think that we will have this position.
I can go next again. So 2 points. As I understood the question, but I would like to pick up what Mariane had just said. The question was, how can consumers valorize what farmers are doing, or how, when farmers are doing a lot of good work, they will be thousands of kilometers, hundreds of kilometers away from the end consumer. How can that value proposition be brought across? And And there are two things that belong to that. A, as I had said previously, primary data. So traceability, primary data that can be shared. And that gives the brands that we have in Nestle and in other companies the opportunity to brag about that supply chain, to leverage that. Some super premium brands will be able to premiumize and maybe also incentivize supply chains behind that. But most of, let's be also honest, most of the products that consumers are buying are not super premium brands. Look at what you buy when you go to supermarket. Most of that will be also normal products. But however, consumers will look, does it have it or not? And it will become a preference. And those who have decarbonized, who have done things right, will be preferred by consumers at on par prices. So where materials will flow, how companies will survive, or how companies will also be rated by their shareholders is going to be impacted by that. It will create a demand and a draw for that. So that goes into the valorization. And of course, the more you digitize, the more that helps. And here I'm specifically thinking of a retailer who had set up for all its vegetable produce the ability for consumers to take out the hand phone, scan a QR code, and they saw from which farmer that seller came from with a pictured GPS location. And that retailer did really, really well. It was called the Star Farm program. Did really well in bringing that out. We had nothing to do with it, but I remember seeing it and how that really gave a pull in a huge market. To the point of Mariane on smallholder farmers or smaller farmers and restrictions that they're in, and the question of time. I mentioned earlier the point of race, and this is why it's really important for me to mention this. Yes, things may be slower. However, don't forget that we don't want not just anybody in our supply chains. We talk about professionalization. We want to lift up the base. We want to provide the training and the technical assistance, and along with that change, business models so that it pays. And if you have a business model, you can also do financing. And I know that there are a lot of investors out there who are looking for such projects that can go and scale. And I'm now thinking across over. I'm maybe a little bit less familiar with such examples on LATAM, but more familiar on the Asian side. We have seen in Pakistan, but China is, of course, they will say Chinese government, but I also know a lot of farmers who have transitioned there from previously 3 to 5 cows to 300 plus, now 1,000 cows. But the same thing in countries like Pakistan, for instance, where farmers are transitioning from, say, delivering half a liter to 3 liters of milk a day to a collection center to delivering a ton of milk or 500 liters of milk a day. And this type of transition has happened in 5 years. And I'm not talking about individual farmers. I'm talking about 2,000-3,000 farmers moving in that direction. So here again, it's about collaboration, business model, finding the right people, allowing them to take a lot of little steps and move ahead. But we don't have to say it has to take 20, 30, 40 years. Yes, we do have until 2050, but the race, to be frank, the first 10 years until 2030, the 50% reduction, man, if we don't really work together, then we are not going to be achieving 1.5 degrees. We'll be at 2-3%, and by 2030, people will not be asking, they will be yelling and demanding, because we will have a different reality.
All right. Bjorn, any comments on this? No.
Yes, no, we all see that new generations have a higher interest in sustainable products. I see it with my own kids, right? They have a decision in what we're buying that goes into the fridge, and I see it with my oldest daughter. She consciously eats less meat and so on. But also, like with the data that is becoming more and more available, we as Yara, we did also a pilot where we traced the coffee, and where, like Robert says, you had a QR code on the coffee which you could scan, and you could see from which area in Colombia the farmers that worked on that and the methods that they were using. So that, that technology and blockchain and so on, that is bringing that kind of information much closer to the consumer, and that will also influence their decisions going forward. So, I do think it's a race to save our planet, but it can also be a race to be first and to differentiate a certain brand with the sustainability aspect. So it's definitely going to change the way the new generations look at products and food for sure.
Our kids will say what's going to happen. And yeah, well, we have still 5 minutes, but I would like to use this opportunity to have the commentary of all of you on one topic that has a lot to do with what you're talking now, is that the idea of reviewing the Codex Alimentarius on residues and contaminants that is part of the proposal of the this food system summit in the United Nations. Now, you probably heard about that. There is what they call Codex Alimentarius, and it has a lot to do with the companies that are members of our association in the CropLife all over the world. And we see it as a, as Robert was saying, we have to work on science, and we have to work on what we have as we have been studying the last decades on toxicity dossiers with a lot of studies. And for some reason, also this came to the agenda. It has a lot to do with fertilizants as well. I'd like, and I know Nestle is pushing this agenda. Or at least supporting the idea of reviewing the Codex Alimentarius. Would you have any comments on this? And even if Mariane has any idea, I'd like to know.
Shall I maybe start? Or
yes, please.
Yeah, I think it comes back to what Robert is saying, right? Metrics and traceability, and at the end, you need to know everything that is inputted into our food. It's important for not only sustainability, but also for food safety. People are watching more closely and are changing their diets and want to lead a healthier lifestyle. So, all the inputs and contaminants that can be there should be avoided, but you also need the proof points to make sure that that can be trusted. So for me, it comes down to traceability again.
Look, maybe on the Codex Alimentarius, and then follow to other Codex Planetarius. Codex Alimentarius, it has given a really good standard on food safety and has taken the food and beverage industry ahead as was really, really required. But today, the ability to measure the detailness of the ability to measure when you have a non-detectable, there are certain types of ingredients for certain food categories where you have only a few places in the world where you can still source an ingredient because the soils have been contaminated with heavy metals, with pesticides and other things. So this links into the Planetarius story where you have to say, okay, well, farmers have to make an income as well. We can't throw the baby with the bathwater out and then start from scratch. We have to evolve, but we can evolve if we regenerate our environment and move into a healthier system behind that. As consequently, we get agriculture right. We may need less interventions on pesticides, fungicides, insecticides. So these things are interlinked. And what is important is what was mentioned earlier was a very good question. Will people be, what happens if I do it? I have a higher cost of production versus another farmer who doesn't do it. What is my benefit? And this is about leveling the playing field to some degree as well. If all farmers are held equally accountable, if all companies are held equally accountable, we really do move the needle. This is not about a Nestle. This is not about any other big multinational company. It's about all of us. And then there usually the next question that follows after that, well, you are such a big company, do you not have a massive advantage versus the other? And then you can, on the other hand, also say, well, if you're a smaller company and you have less supply chains and farmers to deal with, well, your life is a whole lot easier, trust me. So I would actually see here also for smaller companies a great opportunity to grow and thrive with their localization of food production and being extremely relevant there. So that again is beneficial for local food production, for stability of an economy. There are a lot of knock-on effects. So we do welcome this thought process, but there are a lot of unknowns. Just yesterday during an interview, I was saying we answer a question and figure out one area, and we pop up with 3 new ones, and that will continue to happen so for a while to come.
Very good. Yes. So, friends, I see we have our time is over. I'd like to thank you very much for the participation, and I was honored to be here with you and to have this great debate. I learned a lot. Just wanted to give you some seconds to make your final commentary, and then we can close your meeting. Let's start with Mariane, please. If you have any comments on how can we go ahead and decarbonize more and more. And thank you again for being here with us.
Yeah, so to finish, thank you again for the opportunity. Sorry, I have some internet problems here in Brasilia. Christian, I think that the key message, and especially about in this end, about consumers, is that agriculture, livestock is the part of solution. And we must think about climate change, resilience, and also with food security. I think that this is 2 biggest points. And farmers, all the food supply chain, but farmers, they are very important in this process. I think that this is my key message in this end. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mariane. Bjorn, please.
Yes, if I would summarize what we discussed today, the word that comes up to me is collaboration. I do think Yara works together with the ministry in Brazil. We work together with Nestle and many others. And I do think that is really the way forward. And I would like to summarize more as a call to action and really also invite other companies and governments to really, step up and work together on these challenges. As we only have one planet, and we need to be, we need to take care of it. So that would be my summary for today.
Thanks, Robert.
So, Mariane, thank you very much for saying dairy and livestock are part of the solution, not part of the problem. That would have been the first one, Bjorn. That would have been the next one. So I can only end up in saying, look, we are at Nestle engaging with a lot of projects. I think we have over 112 projects that we started this year alone in dairy around the globe in decarbonizing different supply chains. And if you are willing to work, and if you're a supplier of Nestle and most probably any of the other big multinational companies, ask them that you would like to collaborate, build good plans, and you're going to find very, very supportive partners that did not exist maybe 18 or 24 months ago in this town. So please do reach out. We're here working together, and if you're a farmer, as Mariane said, you're part of you are a big part of the solution, and we'd love to collaborate with you, because it starts with you. So thank you very much.
For all your participation. It was a great pleasure for me, and I compliment Atagro for the organization of this meeting. Hope to get in touch with you as in other opportunities, and good luck. Let's work hard for this new world that is coming. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.